very interesting conversation.
Thank you, Ousmane. Can I ask him to load the presentation in the meantime? Okay, perfect. Predictability, when you're talking about, you need to get a good handle on what's happening on ground. You need to understand what's happening in terms of trade, what data is, what the trends are, what the changes are. If you don't, then of course you're going to be predictable because you don't know. You're in a very dicey place if you want to make a decision, especially policies and environment. So I'll be talking about trade and work we are doing on trade. I've been asked to present this year's Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor, which is the only publication dedicated to trade in the continent. We talk about trade all the time. When we talk about gender, we talk about climate-smart agriculture, we talk about nutrition, we talk about resilience, we always talk about trade, but we don't focus on trade as such. And luckily, the commitment by the African heads of states with the African Continental Free Trade Area has brought the focus back on that. And we're lucky enough that with a group of African experts organized under the African Growth and Development Policy Model Consortium, AgroDep, 230 of them out of 32 countries, we launched this report, and this is the second edition. Okay. So, it's not going back? Okay, there you go. So just the outline of the presentation. First, overview of the key findings of the 2019 AATM, Africa Agriculture Trade Monitor. Then I will look at more detail the standing of Africa in the global agricultural economy and trade. I'll talk about the policy determinants of Africa's trade performance. When we want to talk about policy predictability, we need to understand the role of policy first in trade and how to shape that so that we can get a better performance. And finally, we'll address some of the target policy areas for us to promote intra-African trade. Rapidly to the conclusions and key findings of the report, which I'm happy to say is going to be launched here officially by Director General Dr. Schengen Fan, sitting there, and Dr. Michael Hailo of CTA in Bahrain. The two of them will be launching the report, which will be available to you after that. The key findings of the report. First, Africa's performance and weight in the global agricultural economy has been rising lately. It is on a trajectory we think is what we all wanted to see for it. Custom formalities and other non-tariff barriers are the biggest hindrance to trade performance. It's not tariffs, as you will see. That brings us back to policy and policy predictability. Cross-border trade is an important share of total trade by any of these countries. And that's just not a mere movement of goods, but an important determinant to food security and an important determinant to livelihood. So when we talk about export bans, when we talk about protecting, closing our borders, that's really what we're doing. We're affecting food security and livelihoods. We talked about protectionism and the trade that's happening, trade wars. We looked at it in the report to see the trade tensions between China and the United States of America, and see in that the creation of opportunities for African exporters both to China and both to the United States. However, if that were to become a globalized phenomenon, that would be very costly for Africa and other parts of the world. In that context, the African Continental Free Trade Area is an important initiative because it's going to reduce most of the costs that will be coming from there. Now, let's look at where Africa's trade is going. They're quite important movements. You look at the graphs here. The one on the top is talking about the revealed comparative advantage. is where Africa has demonstrated that it's performing well, competing and winning in the global markets. When those lines go up, the position of African exporters in these global markets are getting stronger. So, for the first time you had that. Then the real exchange rates, which is the cost of supplying the markets. The African exporters supplying the market, they're having a cost advantage. They're supplying out the markets at a lower cost than others are doing. So both these two graphs are telling us that African exporters are performing better in the global markets. And that is reflected in the trade. We all talked about the import gap. You look at since 2013 and so, the import gap is declining. I'm not saying that it's positive or negative because we don't know what's driving it, but the import gap is declining. Africa turned net exporter. You look at the graph on the right. Africa turned a net importer vis-a-vis all regions of the world in 2013. By 2017, that gap is reducing by 30% with the global markets. You look at the graph on the bottom to the left, gap between trade, exports, and imports has narrowed by 50%. Obviously, a lot of it is due to the change in imports, and that change is driven by slower economic growth in Africa as well. So I would expect this gap to increase again after the financial crisis of the 2015 and then 2012 and 11 that has brought growth in Africa down, that has brought demand levels in general down, and therefore that imports. So as African countries continue to grow, I will see the gap going again. But at least it seemed to have reached a maximum on 2011 when it was around 50 billion, 45 billion, now it's around $20 billion. You look at the graph at the bottom to the right, and as a share in trade, it has gone up by 6%. Now, these may be small changes, but this is the first time in history that we're having these trends. And Prime Minister Blair was talking about the importance of learning from positive change. For policies to work, we have to figure out what's behind these positive trends and how we can emphasize them. We often talk about tariffs. You look at these numbers, tariff is not the problem. African countries are facing almost the same level of tariffs as other regions. And actually, they tend themselves to apply even higher tariffs than others, protecting more. So it is not tariff. If lower tariffs, then we'll import somebody else. So we have tariff advantage locally. We have no tariff disadvantage globally. So it's not tariff that's holding us back. So let's not blame tariff. It has to be something else. And that is what it is. This is a little bit of a broad graph that I would like to look at a little bit. The purple, the beginning of each line, is the value of tariffs, its share in the obstacles. Those are all dealing with export restrictions, time at border, cost of time to export, all those different administrative, regulatory, and infrastructure issues. That's what's holding back trade. And that's where policy can work. That's where policy can work if you look at that. So all those obstacles, non-trade on the right side, are bad for competitiveness for us in Africa and globally. All those policy obstacles to the right are bad for us if we want to expand intra-trade Africa. Luckily, these are policy and regulatory issues in our hand, under our control, and that we can change. How you do that, let me just skip this one. Let's look at what's working. We just talked about it. In each one of these areas, one region is doing better than the other. Then let's look at what they do. You look at trade integration. EAC link the chains, the value chains across countries with intermediate goods and production of the countries. You look at that, SADC is doing better. It is EAC. You look at free movement of people, ECOWAS is doing better. You look at financial integration, ECOWAS is doing better. What are they doing to be where they are? We just start from there, and we can reap the benefits of better policy environment and increase African intra-trade. Medase, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's thank Ousmane for an amazing presentation. We have the data, we have the trends, what is working where. Let's learn from it. At this stage, I'd like to invite the DG of IFPRI, Michael, and the Vice President of AGRA, to invite my colleague Vanessa to witness the launch of the book. We have 5 minutes, guys, so let's do it very, very quickly. They want to make a quick statement.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. We start with
okay, sure. Well, let me congratulate for the launch of the second trade monitor report. So from IFPRI's side, we are very proud. IFPRI's job is to provide data, research, modeling support to Africans, to Asians, and the people around the world to use the information, digitalize the information and data to drive our food system to deliver better food, nutritious, healthy food, and a sustainable food. I think trade is very critical. Trade can help the poor people access to more diverse, nutritious foods. Trade can also help smallholders to earn a better income by using for market opportunities. Anything that distorts the trade, whether it's trade tariffs or non-tariff barriers, they will affect poor people, whether consumers or producers. So let's make sure that the trade will continue to work for poor people. Let's make sure that we have the data, we have the information, we can track, monitor the trade flows, we can further improve how trade can work for everybody in the world. Thank you. So again, congratulations, Ousmane, your team, and Anton is over here, and many others. So, and also I should thank Michael for the partnership second time, right? So hopefully more will come next year or the year after.
Yeah.
Great, okay.
Briefly. Well, when we started this idea, I think it was 2016, we're not really sure that the safety would be signed and all that, so it's really critical for good policy. And not only that, but a report like this one really focuses attention at least once a year how Africa is overall doing in terms of agricultural trade. So I think it was a really good initiative and good investment, and we're very proud to be partnering in the first issue of this publication. We had policy meetings all over, and we thank all the partners for making this happen.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Can we see the report and consider launch?